You think worrying keeps you safe, that if you rehearse every worst-case scenario, you'll be ready when life turns against you. But Jung discovered something unsettling. Worry doesn't guard you, it traps you. Picture this, it's 3 a.m. You've checked your phone again, your chest is tight, and nothing has changed except your exhaustion. The truth is, worry isn't preparation, it's resistance, and resistance blocks the very flow meant to carry you forward. By the end of this journey, you'll see why letting go doesn't mean losing control. It means discovering a freedom so natural, you'll wonder why you ever clung so tightly. 1. The weight of worry. What if the habit you believe protects you is the very thing that slowly destroys your peace? We are taught early in life that worrying is proof of care, that it shows responsibility and maturity. A parent worries about their child, a worker worries about their job, a partner worries about being loved in return. On the surface, it looks noble, even necessary. Yet beneath it hides a quieter truth. Worry does not guard you from suffering. It multiplies it. It doesn't prevent chaos. It only makes you live in chaos twice, once in imagination, once in reality. The first illusion is the idea of control. Worry convinces the mind that endless mental rehearsal somehow prevents disaster. You lie awake replaying a conversation, scanning for mistakes, as if mental punishment will undo the past. You check your phone 50 times, waiting for the message that never comes, believing that vigilance itself will bend reality. But the body tells another story, a tight chest, shallow breath, racing pulse. You call it responsibility, but your nervous system calls it exhaustion. This is the paradox. Your attempt to control life is the very thing draining the strength you need to face it. Psychology shows us why this trap feels so convincing. The unconscious equates anxiety with readiness. It whispers, if you suffer now, you won't suffer later. But the bargain is false. Jung would say the psyche is tricking itself, binding energy in loops that never resolve. There is even a cruel aphorism to describe it. Worry borrows sorrow from the future, but pays with today's peace. In this sense, the worrier becomes like the archetypal watcher, eyes wide open, scanning every horizon for danger. But the watcher never rests. His eyes sting, his body shakes, and his endless vigilance prevents him from ever feeling safe. For empaths, the burden is even heavier. Sensitive souls not only carry their own storms, but absorb the turbulence of others. A colleague's frustration, a partner's silence, even the tension in a crowded room. All of it enters the empath's body like second-hand smoke. Imagine walking with 2 backpacks of bricks, one filled with your own fears, the other stuffed with burdens that don't even belong to you. Over time, your back bends, your spirit sags, and bitterness grows. The very gift of empathy, once a channel of connection, becomes twisted into a curse of over-responsibility. What you refuse to put down doesn't vanish. It festers, it leaks into relationships, it becomes shadow. And worry doesn't stay inside, it ripples outward. In the workplace, it shows up as over-checking, micromanaging, or the inability to trust a colleague. At home, it becomes overprotection, hovering over children, smothering partners, confusing love with control. Socially, it isolates. Friends drift away not because they don't care, but because constant anxiety makes every interaction heavy. Slowly, the worrier becomes the scapegoat, the one others label too sensitive, too much, or always a problem. And the cruelest part, this very judgment confirms the worry. See, something really is wrong with me. There is tragedy here. Many who worry the most are often the ones who care the deepest. Their sleepless nights, their aching shoulders, their constant vigilance, all of it grows from love. But love that disguises itself as worry turns sour. It corrodes the spirit it was meant to protect. It exhausts the mind it was meant to sharpen, and it imprisons the very person it pretends to safeguard. This is why worry is not a small habit, but a psychic weight. It sits on the chest like a stone. It slows every step. It whispers that you are never safe, never ready, never enough. Yet here is the awakening. The prison is not locked from the outside. The bars are illusions made of fear, and the door has always been open. Worry doesn't guard you, it imprisons you. But if worry is a prison, what happens when you finally step outside the bars too? The flow you resist. Life is not your enemy, it is your resistance that creates the friction. Most of us live as if the world is conspiring against us, as if every silence, every setback, every closed door is a personal insult. But in truth, the world is always moving forward with its own rhythm. What keeps us stuck is not life itself, but the way we fight against its current. To understand this is to unlock one of Jung's most important insights. When you align with the flow of life, you begin to see patterns, synchronicities, and opportunities that were invisible while you were struggling. Jung called this mysterious alignment synchronicity, the experience of meaningful coincidences. When you are no longer desperate, events seem to line up in uncanny ways. You think of an old friend and they suddenly call. You give up on forcing a job lead, and a new opportunity appears without effort. It feels like fate, but it is really the river of life carrying you once you stop thrashing against it. The archetypal image is the river itself flowing forward with inevitability, curving past obstacles, reshaping the land without struggle. Those who fight it drown in exhaustion. Those who learn to float are carried to new shores. But most of us do not float, we build dams. Worry is that dam. Imagine a river blocked by stones piled high. The water cannot flow, so it rises, pressing against the barrier. At first you feel powerful, as if holding back the tide proves your strength. Yet the pressure builds. Nights become sleepless. Legs twitch with restlessness. Headaches throb like drums. The body becomes the landscape of a river about to overflow. And still you cling, believing your wall of worry will keep you safe. Paradoxically, the harder you fight uncertainty, the more uncertain you feel. Every attempt at control only deepens the fear that you have none. I once knew a man obsessed with job security. He checked emails late into the night, rehearsed every conversation with his boss, lived in constant dread of being fired. His dam of worry grew taller each year until the inevitable happened. He was let go. At first, despair. Then something unexpected. For the first time in decades, he had no wall to maintain. In that openness, he stumbled into work that truly suited him, something he would never have seen while blinded by fear. His dam had broken, and the river carried him further than he thought possible. There are practices to taste this release before life forces it upon you. One is simple: write down every worry you cannot control, then burn the paper. Watch the smoke rise and imagine those stones being lifted from the riverbed. It is not magic, it is permission. Permission to remember that not everything needs your grip, that some currents know better than you. Jung's warning was clear: what you resist persists. The more you push against life, the more it pushes back. Only in loosening your grip do you discover that the current was never against you, it was always for you. The river does not stop when you stop paddling, it carries you further. But if surrender is so liberating, why does it terrify us so deeply? 3. The fear beneath worry. What are you really afraid of if you stop worrying? On the surface, worry looks like care, like diligence, like love. But beneath that disguise, it is almost always fear. Fear that if you loosen your grip, something precious will slip away. Fear that silence means abandonment. Fear that without vigilance, you will be left alone. Worry is rarely about the future. It is about the terror of loss. At its root, this is the archetype of the orphan. The orphan fears being cast aside, unseen or forgotten. When you replay a conversation over and over, scanning for signs of rejection, what you are truly chasing is not clarity, it is reassurance. Your body knows this truth long before your mind admits it. The stomach twists into knots, the mouth runs dry, your whole nervous system bracing as if for an attack. Yet the enemy never arrives. The only battle is within the child self, who still trembles at the possibility of being left behind. This pattern is not random. It is written into you by childhood imprints. Imagine a child crying in the dark, waiting for a parent who does not come. Hours pass. Silence becomes unbearable. The child's nervous system learns a cruel lesson. Absence means danger. That imprint never disappears, it simply grows with you. As an adult, you panic when a text goes unanswered. You refresh your inbox, your chest tightens, your mind spirals. You tell yourself this is responsibility, that you are simply caring. But it is not care, it is the echo of neglect still vibrating through your nervous system decades later. This is the cruel trick of worry. It disguises old wounds as present duty. It whispers that you are being cautious when really you are reliving abandonment. It calls itself love when really it is fear in a mask. And so the cycle continues. The deeper paradox is this: the more you try to guarantee safety, the more fragile you become. Think of the woman who clings too tightly to her partner, convinced that vigilance will preserve love. Every unanswered call feels like betrayal, every moment of silence like rejection. In her effort to protect the relationship, she suffocates it. The very control she seeks becomes the reason for loss. Jung might say control is the mask fear wears to hide itself. It looks strong, but it is brittle. And when life inevitably shakes the mask, the fear beneath it erupts. This is why worry cannot be solved by logic alone. Because it is not about tomorrow's uncertainty, it is about yesterday's wound. You are not staying awake at night to solve future problems. You are staying awake because a part of you still remembers the sting of being unseen, unheard, left waiting. Until that wound is faced, worry will always find new disguises. Your worry isn't about tomorrow, it is yesterday's wound demanding attention. So how do you heal the wound without letting fear dictate your life? 4. The healing power of presence. The cure is not in the future you fear, but in the present you avoid. Worry always pulls your eyes forward into imagined catastrophes, into what-if scenarios that never end. But life doesn't exist in the future, it only exists here now. And this is where healing begins, not by solving tomorrow's problems in advance, but by stepping into the moment you keep trying to outrun. Inside each of us lives what Jung described as the silent observer, a part of the psyche untouched by storms. This observer does not panic or spiral, it simply notices. You can touch it whenever you pause, breathe, and ask, which part of me is reacting right now? Instantly, a gap appears between you and the worry. The storm is still there, but you are no longer drowning in it. You are watching it pass. Muscles soften, the heartbeat slows, and you realize you are not your anxiety. You are the one who sees it. When you begin to see worry this way, it transforms from an enemy into a messenger. Imagine it knocking on your door. At first you slam it shut, fearing what it might bring. But when you open it, you see the message is not danger, but truth. Anxiety about rejection often hides a deeper longing for self-respect. Fear of failure often reveals an unclaimed dream. Each worry points not to disaster, but to an inner place that longs for attention. That is why Jung's wisdom rings so deeply. Every worry is a shadow asking for light. The challenge is to ground this insight in daily life. Small practical rituals turn presence from theory into practice. One is simple journaling. The question, what can I influence today? Not tomorrow, not next year, just today. Writing anchors the mind back into reality, where choices can actually be made. I recall a writer crippled by anxious loops, convinced he would never finish his book. But when he began each morning by naming 3 things he could do now, no matter how small the paralysis broke, slowly, word by word, presence returned him to his craft. Yet there is a danger here. Presence can be twisted into escape. Too many use meditation or mindfulness not to face life, but to avoid it. They sit in stillness as a way of hiding, not of healing. Presence is not passivity. It is not detachment from responsibility, but deeper engagement with what is real. The point is not to dissolve into clouds of calm, but to stand fully awake in the life before you. And here lies the promise: when you return to the present, worry has no soil to grow. But presence alone is not enough. What about the unconscious patterns that keep pulling you back? 5. Shadow integration, meeting the root. What you refuse to face inside will keep haunting you outside. This is the secret architecture of worry. It is never only about the situation in front of you. It is about the unspoken fears buried deep in your unconscious. You can silence your phone, avoid certain people, rearrange your schedule, but unless you confront the root, the anxiety will always return wearing a new mask. Jung warned us of this when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The shadow of the anxious self is built on unintegrated fear. Whatever we cannot accept within ourselves, we project outward. This is why criticism cuts so deeply it touches the very place we secretly doubt. When someone calls you careless, it pierces not because they are right, but because a part of you already fears it is true. The wound of insecurity becomes a mirror, reflecting itself through every interaction. You think you are fighting the world, but you are really battling your own shadow. And until that shadow is acknowledged, it will keep showing up in every relationship, every silence, every rejection. The image that helps us understand this is the dragon. In myth, the dragon is always terrifying, but it always guards treasure. Is the dragon, and treasure is the freedom you gain by facing it. Most people spend their lives running from the dragon, but avoidance only makes it larger. Every time you back away, the shadow grows more monstrous. Yet when you finally turn toward it, something surprising happens. The dragon shrinks. Your body trembles, your breath quickens, but this trembling is not weakness. It is energy being released. The shaking you fear is actually the first sign of liberation. Avoidance inflates the dragon. Presence deflates it. One client I worked with had panic attacks whenever her partner didn't reply quickly. She was convinced it meant abandonment, but through integration work, she spoke her fear aloud. "I am afraid you will leave me." Just naming it broke the spell. She realized her panic was not about the present. It was the echo of childhood neglect still vibrating in her nervous system. The moment she faced it, the grip loosened. This is the essence of integration. You don't defeat the dragon by slaying it. You transform it by recognizing it. Think of your shadow like a child. When ignored, the child screams, throws tantrums, disrupts your life. But when embraced, the child calms, softens, and even begins to trust. Your fear is no different. It does not need exile, it needs acknowledgement. Speak to it, name it. Hold it with the honesty you once denied. In that moment, the shadow stops controlling you from behind the curtain and begins to serve you as an ally. This is the paradox. The parts of yourself you most dread are the very parts that can free you. The dragon of worry becomes your ally when you dare to face it. But once you've faced the dragon, how do you live differently each day? 6. Living in alignment with flow. Freedom is not the absence of storms, but learning to sail with them. Many imagine that a peaceful life means nothing bad ever happens again, that calm is the reward for endless struggle. But storms are part of existence. Uncertainty, change, endings, beginnings. True freedom does not come from escaping them, but from finding a way to move with their winds instead of fighting against them. When you begin to live this way, you discover that life, far from being your enemy, starts to cooperate with you in surprising ways. Jung described this as synchronicity, the meaningful coincidences that appear when the inner world and the outer world align. Imagine you finally release your desperate search for a job, and instead of checking listings until 3 a.m. and you choose to rest. Days later, you meet someone unexpectedly who mentions an opening that fits you perfectly. It feels like magic, but it is really alignment. When the inner knot of resistance loosens doors in the outer world, swing open. This is why the old wisdom remains true. When you stop chasing, life starts finding you. The current was always flowing. It is your surrender that allows you to notice where it wants to take you. But this shift does not only change your circumstances, it reshapes your relationships. The archetype of the phoenix captures this rebirth after the fire of destruction. When you burn away the false relationships that drain you, friendships kept only from guilt conversations that weigh you down, you make space for something new. At first it feels like loss, but then comes renewal. You sleep more deeply, your body feels lighter, you laugh without the weight of obligation. In that openness, new people appear, those who nourish rather than deplete, those who reflect your growth instead of your wounds. It is not coincidence. It is the natural response of the universe to the frequency you now carry. Yet here lies a pitfall. Flow is not the same as passivity. Too often people mistake surrender for doing nothing, for drifting without direction. But a boat without a sail is not free, it is lost. True surrender still requires you to set the sail, to choose a direction, to take small, steady steps. The current will carry you, but you must give it something to carry. A simple practice can anchor this balance each morning. Write down 3 things you are ready to release and 3 things you choose to trust. Release the control that was never yours and trust the steps you will take today. In this rhythm, action and surrender walk hand in hand. This is the essence of living in alignment with flow. You are not denying storms. You are not pretending you control the wind. You are learning to adjust your sail, to let the current work with you rather than against you. And when you do, life itself seems to respond. Conversations shift, chances appear, and you realize you no longer have to drag yourself forward. Something greater is already moving you. When you live aligned, life begins to meet you halfway. But even when you align, life will test if you truly trust. 7. The test of faith. The moment you stop worrying is the moment life begins to test you. It feels almost cruel after all the work you've done to let go. Suddenly the old triggers return. Silence from a partner awakens the familiar panic. What if they're leaving? A delayed response from your boss whispers, "What if I've failed?" The body remembers its old rhythms and anxiety rushes back like an unwelcome tide. But here is the paradox. These tests are not proof you've failed. They are proof that transformation is real. Every hero must face initiation before rebirth. The storm arrives not to break you, but to confirm that you are ready to walk through it differently than before. Holding steady in these moments becomes your sacred practice. When the wave of anxiety rises, you don't need to fight it, you need to breathe into it. Whisper to yourself, "This wave will pass." Let the trembling come. Do not mistake it for weakness. The body quivers as old energy leaves, just as muscles shake when growing stronger. The key is to remain rooted not in the illusion of certainty, but in the reality of presence. For faith is not the absence of fear. It is the courage to walk through fear without demanding guarantees. As Jung might remind us, the soul grows not by eliminating uncertainty, but by learning to trust within it. Faith tested in this way transforms survival into living. I think of a man who lost his job after years of anxious striving. At first, despair consumed him. He believed the worst had happened. But freed from the cage of clinging, he discovered a path he never would have taken, starting his own small business, doing work that finally aligned with his heart. The job loss, which once seemed like catastrophe, became a doorway. This is the difference between the survival mind and the individuated mind. The survival mind clings, needing constant reassurance. The individuated mind trusts allowing endings to become beginnings. But beware, the pull of old worry is always near. If you slip back into clinging, the progress dissolves and the old prison rebuilds itself brick by brick. This is why every test matters. It is not about proving strength to the world. It is about proving trust to yourself. The storm doesn't mean you've lost the lesson. It means you've been given the chance to embody it. The shaking, the doubt, the silence, they are not the end. They are thresholds, sacred gates that ask, do you trust enough to keep walking? The storm isn't proof of failure. It is the threshold of freedom. And what happens when you finally cross this threshold? You've seen now what worry really is, not protection, but an echo of old wounds. The moment you stop feeding it, life does not collapse. It begins to flow in your favor. Remember this mantra. The river of life was always carrying you. You only needed to unclench your grip on the rocks. Before you leave, pause. Write down one thing you are ready to release or one truth you choose to trust. Let this be your quiet ritual, the mark that you have stepped across the threshold. And when the silence returns tonight, let it remind you not of fear, but of the freedom you just claimed.